Welcome to the next reading from my simplified and abridged version of The Perfect Way. This time our subject is the nature and constitution of the ego, as covered in the 5th lecture of the work. We shall now discuss the substantial ego, that is, the soul or psyche, the superior human reason, the nucleus of the human system. In every living entity, there are 4 inherent powers. We are speaking now not of component parts, but of forces. The first and lowest mode of power is the mechanical. The second is the chemical. The third is the electrical, an order which includes the mental. And the fourth is the psychical or soulic. The first 3 belong to the domain of physiological science, the last to that of spiritual science. It is this last mode of power which belongs to the immaculate and essential. It is inherent in the substantial and is, therefore, a permanent quantity that cannot be lost. It is in the beginning and is wherever there is organic life. Thus, Psyche is at once the living mother and mother of the living. And she is from the beginning concealed and diffused in all matter. She is the unmanifest made manifest by the divine will, the invisible made visible by energy. Therefore, every manifested entity is a trinity whose 3 persons are 1, that which makes visible, 2, that which is made visible, and 3, that which is visible. These are 1, force, i.e., that which makes visible, 2, substance, i.e., that which is made visible, and 3, their expression or word, i.e., that which is visible. This energy or primordial force has 2 modes, because everything is dual: the centrifugal or accelerating force, and the centripetal or moderating force. Since the latter of these 2 modes is derivative, reflex, and complementary, it is as feminine to the others masculine. By means of the first mode, substance becomes matter. By means of the second mode, matter reverts to its original condition of substance. This tendency of matter to revert to substance and hence to gradually generate soul by means of evolution is automatic, because at the very moment the centrifugal mode of force comes into effect, its derivative, the centripetal force, begins also to exercise its influence. And the primordial substance has no sooner assumed the condition of matter than matter itself begins to differentiate, being actuated by its inherent force, and by differentiating, giving rise to individualities. Then Psyche, once abstract and universal, becomes concrete and individual, and flows out through the gates of matter into new life. A minute spark in the globule, she becomes, by continual accretion and centralization, a radiant blaze in the globe. In the same way as the current of magnetic energy flows along a chain of nerve cells to its central point with ever-increasing momentum, so is the psychic energy throughout nature gradually developed. Hence the necessity of centers, of associations, of organisms. And thus, by the systematization of accumulations of living entities, what is little in each becomes great in the whole. The quality of Psyche is always the same. Her potentiality is invariable. So our souls are the accumulated essences of the numberless consciousnesses composing us. They have grown through the process of gradual evolution from rudimentary entities, which were themselves gradually evolved from gaseous and mineral matter. And these entities combine and coalesce to form more complex entities. The soul of the individual representing the combined forces of their many consciousnesses, aligned and centralized into a permanent unity. While the material and the psychical are to each other respectively as the world of causes and the world of effects, the material is itself the effect of the spiritual, being the middle term between the spiritual and the psychical. It is therefore true that organism is the result of idea, and that mind is the cause of evolution. The explanation is that mind is before matter in its abstract, though not in its concrete condition. This is to say that mind, greater than and yet identical with that which results from organism, precedes and is the cause of organism. This mind is God in God's self, prior to and apart from creation or manifestation. God is spirit or essential substance and is impersonal, if the term persona is taken in its literal sense, but personal in the highest and truest sense if the conception is of essential consciousness, since God has no limitations. God is a pure and naked fire burning in infinitude, a flame of which subsists in all creatures. The cosmos is a tree with many, many branches, each connected with and springing from various boughs, and these again originating in and nourished by one stem and root. And God is a fire burning in this tree, and yet not consuming it. God is I am. Such is the nature of infinite and essential being, and such is God before the worlds. So, what is the purpose of evolution and separation into many forms? The meaning, that is, of life. In answer, we would say, it is the elaboration of soul through the varied transformations of matter. Spirit is essential and perfect in itself, having neither beginning nor end. Soul is secondary and perfected, originating from spirit. Spirit is the first principle and is abstract. Soul is the derivative and is therefore concrete. Spirit is thus the primary Adam, and soul is Eve, the woman taken out of the side of the man. The essential principle of personality, or in other words, that which constitutes personality in its highest sense, is consciousness, is spirit, and this is God. Therefore, the highest and innermost principle of every monad, that is, of every individual unit, is God. But this primary principle, being naked essence, could not be separated off into individuals unless contained and limited by a secondary principle. As this principle is derived, it is necessarily evolved. Spirit, therefore, is projected into the condition of matter in order that, through the process, soul may be evolved. Soul is generated in matter by means of gradual alignment with spirit, and spirit, of which all matter consists, returns to its essential nature in soul, or the medium in which spirit is individuated, and from abstract becomes concrete, so that by means of creation, God the One becomes God the Many. We have spoken of an outer personality and an inner personality, and of a material consciousness as differing from a spiritual consciousness. We have now to speak of a spiritual energy as differing from a material energy. The energy by means of which the soul aligns itself with the spirit and gradually increases is not dependent on the undulations of the ether, as are material energies. The astral ether is the first state of matter, and corresponding to this first state of matter is the primordial force, the rotatory or centrifugal and centripetal in one. But before and within force is will, that is necessity, which is the will of God. It is inherent in substance, which is the medium in which it operates. Such as the primordial will is in relation to the primordial substance, the individual will is to the derived soul. And when the current of spiritual energy or will is strong enough in the complex organism to align sufficiently and kindle centrally, then the individual psyche conceives divinity within her and becomes God conscious. In the rudimentary stages of matter, this current is not strong enough or continuous enough to achieve this degree of alignment. As soon as Psyche has gathered sufficient force to burn centrally, her flame cannot be quenched by the disintegration of the physical elements. These indeed fall apart and are cast off many times during life. Yet the consciousness and memory remain the same. We do not have in our physical bodies a single particle which we had a few years ago. And yet our ego is the same and our thought continuous. The psyche in us, therefore, has grown up out of many elements, and their interior egos are perpetuated in our interior ego, because their psychic force is centralized in our individuality. And when our psyche is disengaged from the disintegrating particles of our systems, she will, after due cleansing, go on to form new affinities, and the reversion of matter to substance will still continue. If the soul is immaculate, why, it is not unreasonable to ask, is she attracted by material affinities? The answer is that the link between her and earth is what the Hindus call karma, namely the results of past conduct and consequent destiny. And though immaculate in her virginal essence, Psyche is not the espoused bride until the bond between her and the earth is severed. This can only come about when every molecule of her essence is pervaded by spirit and is indissolubly married with it, as God the Father with God the Mother in the beginning. The soul, like water, can never really be other than immaculate, and hence the singular appropriateness of water as the mystical symbol for the soul. As a chemical combination of two gases, hydrogen and oxygen, which are themselves pure, water itself is also pure and cannot be otherwise. The condition called foulness occurs not by the admission of foreign substances entering into combination with it, but only by mechanical admixture with these and the holding of them in suspension in such a way that they may be eliminated by distillation. Such is the relation of the soul to sin. When regeneration, the equivalent of distillation, is accomplished, karma is no longer operative. The law inherent in the primordial in the primordial substance of matter obliges all things to evolve according to the same method. The worlds in the infinite abyss of the heavens are similar in all respects to the cells in vegetable or animal tissue. Their evolution is similar, their distribution similar, and their mutual relations are similar. For this reason, by the study of natural science, by the study of natural science, we may learn the truth not only in regard to this, but in regard also to occult science, because the facts of the former mirror the facts of the latter. We have already said that our souls are the accumulated essences of the numberless consciousnesses composing us. Our souls are not, however, limited in capacity to the sum total of those consciousnesses as they are in their separate state, but represent them combined into one life and lifted up to an indefinitely higher plane. This is because the synthetical resultant thus arrived at is not a mere aggregate of constituents, but represents a new condition of these. It is in this sense that we are to understand the synthesis of consciousness, by means of which our individuality is constituted, and referring this synthetic energy to an even higher plane, the formulation of the God consciousness peculiar to our world. This idea was familiar to the ancients. They were accustomed to regarding every heavenly orb as a deity, having for its material body the visible planet, for his astral nature its vegetable and animal intelligences, and for his soul man's substantial part. And his spirit being the nous or higher reason of man and therefore divine. And as when speaking of the planet God, they especially meant that nous, it was truly said that our divine part is no other than the planet God. In our case, Dionysus or Jehovah Nissi, the god of the emerald or green earth, also called Iacchos, the mystic Bacchus. Just as all creatures composing the planet are to the planet, so are all the planets to the universe, and so are all the gods to God, that is, in manifestation. The supreme ego of the universe is the sum total of all the gods. His personality represents all their personalities in combination. To pray to him is to address all the celestial host, and by inclusion, the souls of all just men. But just as in man, the central unity of all the consciousnesses of his system combined is more than their sum total, in that it is on a higher level, the same holds good in the planet and the universe. Thus, the soul of the planet is more than the combined essences of the souls composing it. And by the same token, the consciousnesses of the system is more than that of its combined world consciousnesses. And the consciousness of the manifest universe is more than that of its corporate systems. And that of unmanifest deity is greater than that of them all. For the manifest does not exhaust the unmanifest, but the Father is greater than the Son. Here it is necessary to insist on and define this distinction between the manifest and unmanifest God. No man, it is said, hath seen the Father at any time, because the Father is deity unmanifest. And again, he that hath seen the Son hath seen the Father also, because the Son is And again, he that has seen the Son has seen the Father also, because the Son is deity in manifestation and is the express image or revelation of the Father brought forth in the fullness of time as the crown of cosmic evolution. This latter mode of deity is therefore synthetical and cumulative, the end result of the whole series of the universal life process, as exhibited in successive planes of generative activity. But the Father is deity in its abstract mode, logically preceding and including the secondary and manifest mode, the alpha of all things and processes, the supracosmic primordial being, impersonal in the literal sense of the term and unindividuated, that in which consciousness subsists in its original mode and by which it is subsequently conditioned and compelled. This unmanifest deity must necessarily represent some mode of selfhood, but its nature remains inscrutable to us and can be known only through the person of the Son, that is, in manifestation. Thank you for enduring to the end with this reading, as it is the most complex of the whole series. So well done.